Building a study plan is one of the most critical things you're likely to do for your GMAT preparation. Why? Because you make three decisions. First, how are you going to reach your target GMAT score? Now, when you think about the GMAT, especially the GMAT Focus Edition, there are thousands of ways to go from your current score to your target GMAT score. And 90% of those ways, or those paths as we call them, are suboptimal. I'm going to demonstrate how our study planner tool gets you those optimal paths and puts you on them. The second decision that you have to make is to get a good estimate of how long you're going to take to get there. Now, one of the most important questions, or one of the most common questions that I get is, can I get to my target GMAT score in a month, 45 days, 2 months or so? The GMAT planner tells you those answers, and it gives you a reliable estimate based on data from at least 1,000 students who've been in your shoes and who've done this successfully. The third and probably the most ignored decision is, where are you going to spend that time? How much of that time is going to be spent in a particular subsection while learning content versus while practicing questions? How many questions are you likely to practice? How many mocks are you going to take? Again, this is where we leverage the data from thousands of students in each segment. So this is completely personalized and give you a really good estimate. So on day one, as you use our GMAT planner, you have a really good idea of what your GMAT journey is likely to be. Now, if you were to do this, with a human, you'd need about 2 hours of a GMAT expert's time, and good experts are not cheap. In India, that'll cost about 10,000 rupees. In the US, it's about $500 or so. We spent upwards of 4,000 hours of R&D to make sure that each one of you can do this in about 10 minutes, and you have that plan which is ready for you to execute, which is something that you can not only do it once, but do it multiple times if your GMAT plan changes. So with that, let's see how we do this using the GMAT planner. So this is your GMAT planner interface. By the time it goes into production, it might look slightly different. So we're going to get started with this. It tells you what all you need to get started with the GMAT planner. Let's start with creating a study plan. I'm going to put a target GMAT score of 675. That's I think a 730 equivalent. So it's a nice score, and you can see it's 96 percentile, which is that 730 equivalent. Then we're going to set your current GMAT score. I'm going to put this at around that 545 mark. It's the median score, and we need to know the source of that. So we're going to say it's an MBA.com mock test. Then we're going to so at this point, you see what your journey is. You have to go from a 47th percentile to that 96th percentile. You can really see that journey, and this entire chart is dynamic. It's built especially for you based on your starting and your target scores. Then let's look at your current scores. So the case study that we're going to take is of someone who's really good in quant, not as great in verbal, and according to the data insights, is going to be actually less than both quant and verbal. Typically, your data insight score is going to be towards the lower of your quant or verbal scores, just because it's a combination of quant and verbal. So we're going to take a verbal score to be 79, which is around that 51st percentile. We're going to take that quant score to be 82, which is that 76th percentile, and you can see those percentiles are right there. So the tool is smart. As you enter this, it understands what these scores correspond to, and then it gives you those scores. So over here, this is the corresponding data insight score. So now this is where a lot of the processing happens. It understands what these scores are, it understands the corresponding percentile translation, and then looking at it assigns those scores in those bands, and it looks at a bunch of paths. Here, let me just zoom this in over here. There are 212 probable paths that you can take to go from that 545 to 675, and it is figure out the most optimal path. And this is something which I think you've got to understand what it's doing. It first took your quant strength and increased that. Now, it didn't take that to 90 or 100 percentile. It really increased that to a level which it thinks you can achieve given where you currently are. Then it improved your verbal score, and then correspondingly a data insight score. Again, the goal over here is to give you a good decision. If you want to pick a target split, it also gives you an initial estimate. It also tells you what are some of the other alternate paths. Again, if you want to go super high on quant, you can take that. If you want to go high on verbal, you can take that as well. I'm going to take the recommended path going forward. And then when you take that recommended path going forward, it'll then really tell you what your what are the recommended times it'll be, so you can really look at this, how many hours you're going to take in verbal, quant, and DI, you can get those exact estimates. Now, these estimates, we'll continue to refine them as we make more decisions, but you can really get an initial estimate over here. Okay. Now, this is the journey. On verbal, you have to go from that 79 to 83rd, on quant 82 to 88, and data insights, the corresponding one. Now, let's look at your starting abilities. Remember, you're at the 51st percentile. I'm going to put your CR ability at 49, RC ability at 52, 54. Now, based on this and based on your target verbal score, it'll now build those verbal milestones. And in here, you can see it's recommending an 83rd percentile for RC and an 80th percentile for CR, and it has those times calculated as well. Now, you might really say, okay, why 1.2 weeks in RC and 2.6 weeks in CR? Just because the amount of content. So it's aware of which section are we talking about and how long does it take to improve. And this is something you're going to see in arithmetic and algebra as well. So I'm going to modify this. I'm going to say, hey, I want to actually get to a higher score in RC. I want to get to a 90th percentile. Accordingly, you can see, the CR percentile goes down, the CR time estimate goes down, and I'm going to set this as a target. I'm going to accept this. We're going to now do this with the quant score as well. Again, your starting abilities are on 76 percentile. I'm going to put this at 76 and 69. Let's actually make this slightly lower. Let's make this slightly higher. Both of these are good estimates in this case. And let's kind of get those quant milestones here. Again, where do you get these ability scores? You get them from your official mock or from the Sigma X mock. Again, it gives you those estimates as to what your target score needs to be and how long would it take. I'm going to accept these. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with data insights here. Again, I'm at a very low score, so I'm going to just randomly move this. I'm going to you can get those exact numbers from essentially your ESR, but let's just keep these over here. Now, in this case, because I'm good in quant, my DS score is likely to be higher. So let's move forward. Again, it tells what your target abilities should be. I'm going to accept that. It tells you the time that it needs to take. Again, all of this is built around data from thousands of students, built around the knowledge of how long it takes for someone to do a certain percentage of the e-GMAT course offering, and it only takes into account those students who've actually done it, and that's something which is very critical. Now, at this point, we are done with how we're going to get there. We know the targets, input scores. We know the target scores. Now, let's kind of talk about time commitments. It's one of the most challenging things that students face, and this is where you have to be absolutely careful. Again, you have the same journey over here. You have the subsectional journeys. You can expand this. All of these are custom graphics that we built, and this allows you to get a really good idea of your journey. Again, you can really see that DS ability improvement is included in the quant course because that's where you study. So it's aware of all of those things during your journey. Again, you can see the time estimates. You can also see which stage are you going to spend that much time in quant as well as in verbal and data insights. So it has that data from the course. Now, let's talk about time commitments. And this is a really important piece here. Okay. I'm going to accept the study sequence. Now, this is where we took a lot of feedback from our students, and we more enhanced this. This is something which is there in the current PSP as well, but here it's front and center. So you can really say, hey, I'm going to spend 2 hours on a weekday, or maybe I can spend 3 hours on a weekday, and maybe I can do just 4 hours on the weekend. So that's something that's there. Now, it also could happen that on certain days you're not able to spend as much time. So for example, for a lot of people, Mondays are really busy. Tuesdays, you can really do that time. For people who work in the Middle East, Fridays are a holiday. So Fridays are 6 hours, and then Sundays are working days. So I'm going to go back to 2 hours or so. So again, you can see all of this customization can be done on a per day basis. And this, I think, gives you that flexibility to make sure that this plan is as realistic as it gets. Now you can pick your start date. You don't need to start right away. You could also pick another date that you want. So it gives you that flexibility. Maybe you don't want to start studying right away. Maybe you want to study slightly later on. Based on this, it tells you what your tentative date is going to be. If you wanted to, you could pick an earlier date, and then you could do the entire math with regards to how many more hours would you put in, where would you get in those times. The system's flexible; it allows you to do that as well. But I'm not going go there right now. Again, you can see your entire journey. You can see how it's going to start. You can start with RC, then move to CR. And in quant, you're going to start with arithmetic, then go to algebra, and data insights specifically. You're going to really see that as well. Now, this is a high level overview. We go further and we give you your sectional journey as well. So here is your sectional journey. You can see you're going to start with CR, you're going to spend 2.1 weeks and then 1.3 weeks over here. So total time is about 83 hours in this case. Then you can do the same thing with quant, and you can do the same thing with data insights as well. So you have a clear idea of your starting dates and ending dates in all of this. Now, you can go, let me move this here. You can go and get the details of your verbal journey. You can really say, hey, when are you going to, on which dates are you going to do which modules within the e-GMAT course? You're going to complete the master comprehension course. Then this is from 20th of September to 3rd of October. You're going to do the CR course. That's about 41 hours. And then you're going to do cementing in CR. Then you're going to do the same thing with RC. And then you're going to do the test readiness. And you have that time allocated for each aspect of it. You can do the same thing with quant, and you can do the same thing with verbal as well. So you can now see the number of decisions we took during this entire preparation, starting from choosing an optimal path for your target GMAT score or target GMAT focus score, to choosing those optimal percentiles, to choosing those time commitments. And each one of these decisions are validated, which means, we've looked at hundreds and hundreds of simulations of GMAT focus. We've done those internally to get those numbers. The GMAT does not publish what sum of scores do you need to get to a target GMAT score. Similarly, the GMAT does not publish what combination of percentiles leads to what verbal, what quant, what DS scores. This is something that we've actually understood how the test works, and have given you reliable estimates. And then we've looked at data from hundreds and hundreds of e-GMATs in each of those segments and given you good reliable estimates. Each of this, I'm at about 10 minutes 47 seconds. I think you guys can do this in about 8 minutes or so if you have the right mindset. If you have to learn about things, it'll probably take you 12 to 15 minutes. But this is something on day one, you'll get an extremely reliable estimate of what your GMAT journey is going to look like, where you're going to get that time out, and where you're going to spend that time. Hopefully this helps you figure out how to get to that target GMAT score. With that, as I always say, happy learning.